So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Phish shows from Dayton that do not include. I mean, the '97 Nutter Center show has obviously had its day in the sun and over again. And the 2017 show at the Nutter Center, I feel like, at least the Down with Disease is still real. We got a rogue hair here. Sorry, guys. You got to deal with this morning look. I don't know. It's weird, huh? The lighting and everything. So, man, not going to do a full-on whiteboard recap of both these shows, but it was 11/17/94. I'll include some links too below in the description when I'm done with this. You can actually check them out. Phish Tracks. There's the re-listen app. There's several places you can check them out. So 11/17/94, Hara Arena. And then there was also 11/30/1995. They like to come in here in November, huh? Dayton, not the nicest place in November. 2 years in a row, though, they come here. And then 95, that may have been the very first year of the Nutter Center. If not, it was still real new back then. Hara was getting old by 94. But Hara, where they played in 94, kind of had a reputation of, like, just a good rock and roll venue. I remember being a kid and Ozzy Osbourne playing there into the 90s. Pantera played there a lot. Kiss came there a lot in the 80s. Van Halen played there in the 80s. So in the 80s and even early 90s, it was kind of like a rock and roll it's just a place, man. I don't know. That's where all the rock concerts were at the time. And as it got older and older, it's totally demolished now. It was scheduled to be demolished, and then a tornado beat them to it. Which is probably may have saved them some cash, right? Like they planned on destroying that place, and then a tornado rolled through and kind of helped them out a little bit. Or maybe it just made it worse and scattered shit. So from that night, they opened up with Helter Skelter. And, it's not like a Phish Wilson opener, but if for a cover opener, that was bringing it pretty hard. Everybody was kind of fired up. I love the crowd noise on these old shows. Got to Divided Sky, and as the song quieted down, so did the crowd. The crowd got so quiet that the pause just went on and on and on, much longer than you can allow a pause these days. Must have went on for a good 60 seconds, I would think, of total silence. Then the crowd did start to get a little antsy, some people shouting out here and there. Really good Colonel Forbin Mockingbird with the Vibration of Life narration from Trey in there. The YEM, oh man, when people talk about now, like their tempo, like they don't play as fast or they're slow. And I was thinking, I don't know. I don't notice it that much, but I don't listen to a lot of old shit either. Dinner and a movie stuff I listen to a lot, but it's not very often now that I'm going back and listening to stuff from 94, 95. I've had people requesting these shows, and it has been pretty cool going back and listening to a lot of shows I haven't heard in forever. But my point was, this YM was really fast. It's like they just raced through the song. I mean, they're to like the Mike bass solo 14 minutes in, and they haven't really skipped much. I mean, it was just a high pace, super tempo for this one. And then we got into A Slave to the Traffic Light. Obviously, that's one of my favorite songs. It did not end the set, but it was close, and just kind of toward the middle of that song, Trey just kept hitting this note. It was like, it just reminded me of, these big arena rock notes during the quiet part too. So that was kind of cool. And then they brought out Jeff Mosier. I guess he was some kind of bluegrass guy. I'm not real familiar with Jeff Mosier. But he came out and they jammed on a Fixin' to Die to end the show. Like a kind of really jammed out Fixin' to Die. 8 or 9 minutes long. So that was a cool way to end the show. So those were probably the highlights for me from the 94 show at Hara. The Helter Skelter opener was really cool. The Divided Sky, mostly because of the pause. And it wasn't overall tight, really good. Everything was really good on the YEM too, man, just from section to section. And, so that was pretty much the highlights from that night. Maybe that's not. There was what else they got? There's Donkface Boy, that was cool. Obviously, I'm burning up Maze. They did play Wilson right before the Divided Sky. Got a Down with Disease in there. So overall, just pretty good show. Then you got the I'm Blue, I'm Lonesome, Nellie Kane. They did a lot of stuff with Jeff Mosier, but the Fixin' to Die was really it. So then on to the 95 show at the Nutter Center. Their first trip to the Nutter Center. And I remember these guys at the Nutter Center. They had these like custom-made shirts. They even got one on stage to Trey, and it said Phish Destroys Dayton. But they did not have the 94 show on there, I don't believe. I think they just had the Nutter Center shows listed. I could be wrong, though. I don't remember, but I think I'm like, hey man, they don't have November 94 on there. And that was a worthy show. And all these shows pretty highly rated on .net. I mean, in fact, the 2017 Nutter Center show is the lowest rated out of all of them. That one got a 4.1. The 97 show with a strong 4.6. The 95 Nutter Center show has actually got a 4.4. And then the Hara Arena show a 4.2. I feel like some of you guys need to get on .net and give that Hara Arena show a little bit higher. I mean, it might be a 5. Maybe I'm biased just because it was Dayton. But if you, it's a 4. I guess a 4.2 is probably appropriate. Same thing for the Nutter Center 95. It's almost a 4.5. Anything above a 4.1 is really good. I mean, a 4.1, that's, is that good? That's pretty good, I guess. Thinking I'm referencing the 2017 show. And compared to the Baker's Dozen shows that year, I guess just not everything could be a 5. But if you gave that 17 show much lower than a 4, oh yeah, the curtain, ha ha ha. I think it was maybe in the early days of the Nutter Center. They had a big giant curtain in the background. It's got it listed as the curtain. The length of the song was 5 minutes and 60 seconds. That's interesting. It's different than 6 minutes. So the curtain, ha ha ha. Believe it or not, the fucking alligator mouth into from there to there was actually really awesome. One of the highlights. But then unfortunately, after ha ha ha, we got Julius. And I do believe in the early days of the Nutter Center, they had like the last maybe like 20% of the arena behind the band just cut off with a big giant curtain that went across the length of the arena, I think. Could be wrong about that, but I feel like I remember going to like a high school basketball tournament game there once back in those days, and it had a giant curtain up. So maybe that was the deal with the curtain, ha ha ha. So then they had the jewel. The first set, really just everything kind of really standard, kind of by the books. I hate that word standard, but like even an 8-minute bathtub gin, a 10-minute lizard, 7-minute fast enough for you, 5.5-minute riff. So everything was really good, really tight, really tempoed up, and then a fire ending the set. But no jamming at all, really. Very, very little jamming. Maybe in the Julia some type 1, but how would I know? Then the Tweezer, man, and speaking of some jamming, so 95, they did start to get there. Now, there was a lot of shows where you weren't going to get a 19.5-minute Tweezer, and it took a while. It seemed like it was just a cool jam Tweezer till about maybe, the 14-minute mark, and oh, man, then it kind of got a little dark, a little heavy. Trey changing things up a little bit, and then it got a jammed out Maki Supa. Really, the Tweezer all the way through free in the second set. The Maki Supa was jammed a little bit. Just an insane, fiery, run like an antelope, a cool scent of a mule. Like I said the other day, that scent of a mule they stretch it out and played a little bit with. Maybe just 3.0 mule gets the doesn't get a whole lot of extra treatment. But then it did as they let in. Mike even really laying it down with some bass. Same thing with that previous YEM. Man, if you're into Mike bass solos in YEM, check out that one from Hara Arena. And then they ended it with the free. Kind of maybe reminded me a little bit of the Amsterdam free. Or there's another one that I'm thinking of from the mid to late 90s. But this free could have been like one of those Amsterdam frees. Then we got a Strange Design and then a Monster Harry Hood encore. So they started strong. They ended strong. Well, Sample in a Jar is how they started. But really it started with Curtain Ha Ha Ha. So overall, let's review from that show. The Curtain Ha 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 is definitely worth checking out. Just the segue was awesome. The Tweezer, Maki Supa, and basically the whole second set was awesome. Maybe you could get by skipping that Cars, Trucks, and Buses or whatever if you're a little limited on time. And the Strange Design. But Tweezer through free was all top-notch stuff. I mean, if the whole show was like that, this show would have been closer to a 5. Or a 10, depending on who's doing the rating. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it. And then, like I said, yeah, man, I mean, the 97 and 17 shows weren't no hacks. And then they were here in 1990, but almost nobody, including, like, the best Phish archivists, don't really know. Canal Street Tavern downtown, which was unfortunately wiped out during the pandemic. It's permanently closed now. But they played there in 1990, a band called Jim, J-I-M. Guess they were Jim, I don't know. They opened up, and one of the band members did talk a little bit about the show. He remembered a crazy, at least 20-minute Bowie that ended the show. There's a little bit written on this on Phish.com. You should check that out. I don't know, just Google Dayton Canal Street Tavern or something like that. Phish Dayton, 1990. So it'd be cool, I guess. I mean, at this point, nobody's going to know anything. I think even the guy who owned the Canal Street Tavern has now passed away. The longtime owner who could have given you some information. And, I don't know, 15 to 20 people were there. Some people supposedly got turned away at the door because it was 21 and over. So I know that's a pretty cool story. If you haven't known that, that story broke a few years ago. I'll also include a link to that in the description, I guess, here if you want to check that out. If you haven't heard that, or maybe you forgot. You're like me. I remember when that story kind of came around 7 or 8 years ago, but I forgot about that. All right, guys. Boom. Thanks for checking these out, and definitely check out the highlights. I'll throw some links down in the description. All right, guys. Boom. Thanks. Was that you got double boomed? How about a triple boom? Can you get the hat trick? Boom.